opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Hello, West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim, your host. The spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, nonprofits, individuals that can help us thrive in our lives. We have a very special guest here today. Who wants to become a millionaire? Most of us have heard that. We love watching people on TV become millionaires. But really, what does it take to be the ordinary person to become a millionaire? I have an author, M.Q. Hana, who wrote the Ordinary Millionaire book, and he is going to be here today to share what it took for him and his wife to become a millionaire. Especially if I want to quickly tell you that he immigrated here from Vietnam when he was 11, so he struggled with language and how to succeed and he got caught up in the American way of life to still finally sit down and make some changes to become a millionaire today. So welcome M.Q. Hana to the show. Thank you, author.
Thank you, Pamela Keim, for having me.
Well, I am excited about being here. I've been reading your book, and I heard it from a dear friend of ours, Stephanie Kolakowski, that you have worked with. But let's just start off of who you are and why you felt the need to even call this the Ordinary Millionaire, because some people are going to look at you and say, yes, there's probably something about him that I don't have, that I won't ever become a millionaire.
Sure. So my name is Minh Nguyen, and my pen name is M.Q. Hana. I'm a financial coach and an author of 2 books. One is The Red Wedding.
You can hold that up.
Okay. Here you go.
You know.
If you enjoy a good action thriller, suspense, and romance, then I know you like this book. And the other one is, like you mentioned, The Ordinary Millionaire, From Poverty to Immigrant to Financial Freedom.
It's kind of similar to, like you said in the book, like the Millionaire Next Door.
Next Door,
you know,
yeah.
that came out in the 90s, and I think people got, you know, that the simplest person can really become a millionaire.
Yeah, and that's what this book is about. Yeah, I talked a little bit about my life in poverty in Vietnam. And here as an immigrant in the 90s, I struggled for a long time. And you mentioned that my school was terrible all the way to college. But once I graduated from college, I was actually making decent money, you know, but yet I squandered most of them away on frivolous things. So with a little help from listening to Dave Ramsey on the radio and many personal finance and investment books, my wife and I were able to take some of the steps and turn our finances around. You know, we knocked out one debt after another, and eventually...
So let's just slow down here, okay? All right, let's just start. You know, everybody knows, somewhat knows Dave Ramsey, right? And the snowball. You take the smallest debt and you break it and you snowball it.
Yeah.
We all hear that. So let's talk about you heard him, like, did you hear about in the radio, in the car, somebody turned him on to him, and can you kind of share that kind of the light that went off? Because a lot of people listen to him.
Yeah,
but they don't become millionaires.
Yes, no, that's very true. For me, it was that after I have made some failures in my life, in my careers, that I finally realized I was determined. Coming back from my last business trip to Vietnam, I remember sitting there with tears running down my face, you know, after a year and a half leaving my job behind and trying to pursue a business that I thought I could do, you know, and it didn't go very well. And I left with my wife for a year and a half with all the expenses by herself, you know. So when on my way back, I was determined to do whatever it took to give my wife a hand, and that was exactly what I did. So when I came back, I decided to just start from all over again, and just, you know, even minimum wage job, I don't care, you know, I do whatever it took.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
You did a minimum wage job?
Well, I started my job like $11 or $12 an hour. at first, you know, and this was, I want to say this was 8 years ago.
Okay.
So that was still low, right? $11, $12 an hour. But, you know, like I said, I was determined to do whatever it took, even taking care of the trash. I didn't care, you know. And I stayed later. I came in earlier to do whatever it took for the company. And then soon after that, I was promoted into a position where I could sit there, check in paperwork, but listen to Dave Ramsey at the same time.
Oh, they had it on the radio?
Yeah, they had. Well, I
Okay.
was able to listen to the radio because this was second shift.
Oh, I see what you say.
Yep, and then I would just listen to it. And a lot of things that he talked about really resonated with me. Philosophically, I've always been kind of a frugal person, you know. But just that when it comes to cars and traveling, those are my two weaknesses right there,
well,
you know.
well, it's everyone has something that they really put a lot of
Yeah.
money towards.
Yeah.
If it's a hobby,
Yeah,
if it's, you know, I don't know, even books.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
people that love reading and
Yeah.
they go to their home and they have a
Yeah.
huge library.
Yeah.
You know, even that becomes a big
Yeah.
expense.
yeah. And not until I had a chance to listen to him, that's when I realized that the majority of Americans, average Americans, struggle just the same. Even those that could make like really, really good money, they struggle to control their expenses. And so what
Why do you think that is? I mean, you're out there, you understand. And we talked about this before the interview started. You know, why do we have such a taboo to talk about money, what we think about money, how emotional, what we see on TV with money, even though when we have money, right,
Right.
it feels good, right?
Right.
To have
Right.
money, be able
Right.
to be generous,
Right.
help others.
Yeah.
Why do we still just don't talk about money?
Well, money is a taboo topic because it's quite personal. You know, when you're not as successful and you need help, you should seek out, right? You should talk about it so that maybe you can get some ideas. But that also shows your weaknesses, shows your failures, right? And so you don't want to be humiliated. But when you are a bit successful and you want to share some of the knowledge, it's hard to also talk about it too, because you can be looked at as showy or arrogant, right? Or
Right.
just like talk about things that just because you're a little more successful than others, you just go around and talk about it, you know?
Well, the
And-
problem is what I'm just saying is that we don't talk about money, and then we have that scenario. If you
yes.
talk about money, you're
Yes.
too showy.
Yes.
And you even in here we talk about you know, the money is the root of all evil, right? And it's the love of money,
Right.
right?
Right.
But you show in here that, you know, money is just a transactional.
Right.
It
right.
actually flows,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Money really magnifies who you really are. You know, I talk about it in the book that if you're a jerk and you always treat people
Yeah.
badly, then, you know, even when you're poor, you can still steal and you do things, right? And you justify it by, you know, that others have to like share that responsibility or equalize that, right? But even when you have money, you still treat people not so well if you're a jerk. So, and then you see others like, you know, Bill Gates or Linda Gates Foundation, you know, those guys, the Rockefellers, you know, they were very, very rich, but they were very generous. They were able to contribute a whole lot to our society, you know, and a lot of times, you mentioned earlier that why is there an ill feeling toward people that have money? But what a lot of people don't realize that it's actually the wealthy people that are actually the ones that provide products and services for the general public, and they provide jobs and other opportunities for
what do
others
you
to
get back?
succeed. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you there. So what when you say this to the public, right? Or maybe at you're at a networking event or whatever, you say that, how surprised are people that, because we have this persona that, it's the working, which I understand, we all been there.
Yeah.
And then we end up being the leaders and whatever as we move up in our career. But I was always surprised at how angry people get that when you start telling them facts, because this idea of we've been raised in a society for decades and decades. I don't know where it came from, but probably maybe out of envy that they didn't able to achieve. And now we have a whole generation of people that have been highly educated through the universities, and they get out, they're in debt, some of them, and they haven't been able to achieve the wealth that they've been promised with this degree. And then they see you, and it's like, wait a minute, how did you do it? Because it's so, the shame of not being able to achieve what you should have achieved with what you've been given is everywhere.
Yeah. I think the one thing that a lot of people underestimate is the power of living a frugal life and invest. You don't have to make great incomes, and that's what you're saying. When you go to college, you end up with a whole lot of debt, whether you graduate or not, right? And then once they graduated, they're not living this promise that they were given, right? So, but that's because they all are driven to have higher income rather than, yes, high income, higher nice career. That's all good. But the other side of the equation is control your expenses. And that's probably the thing that I found out, that it wasn't about the income that I was making, because like I said, 8 years ago when I started out, I was making $11, $12 an hour. But even with those, once I was determined to cut down my expenses, no more buying cars, no more traveling, that was when I started to save a whole lot.
Did you find, okay, because we do want to talk about your journey here from Vietnam, because that is a big deal with that. But okay, did you find when you started giving, what do they call it? You just self-gratification, or is it delayed gratification? That's what it's called.
Yes.
And all these cars, did you see how fast time went? And it wasn't really that much in the scale of your life that you actually had to sacrifice to start reaping the rewards.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. The time does go by very fast. When I was, yes, it totally makes sense because I think a lot of them has to do with your mentality at that time, right? If you are already determined that you want to build up your savings, you want to build up your wealth, cars and everything else, especially material-wise, is basically the afterthought, right? You no longer care about that. You no longer think about those kind of things. And so therefore, if your mind has shifted, when you see the car that you used to love on the road and you used to want it so badly, all of a sudden, when you see it again, you're thinking, and I had this too, like I said, I'm a car guy, right? But nowadays, nowadays, when I see like nice car on the road, it reminded me of back then when I first, in 2006, when I had a brand new BMW, I was in a lot of debt. And so every time I see like one of those very, very nice car on the road like that, I don't see that as a nice car anymore, but I see that as the driver behind that car is in a lot of debt. So because of that, you don't think about it anymore, you don't dwell on it. And so therefore, like you say, time goes by really, really fast. Yeah, because you don't have to like really be out there, just look for a brand new car, look for a brand new things. and wanting to achieve, get something,
Right.
you know. And so that's why you just focus on what is that you're trying to build, and because you just focus on it, you don't think about the time, you know, you just focus on the progress.
But were you
one thing after
surprised
another.
how quickly, like I said, many people that, you know, let's just say weight, right? You lose weight. And it's so hard at first because you have to, let alone change your eating and your lifestyle, you have to change your mind.
Right.
And you have to fill that time.
Right. Right.
You're not going to spend as much time in the kitchen if you're
Right.
not going to eat the food.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right? Or you're not going to stop at McDonald's. And those
Right.
things all take up your time.
Yeah.
And then the benefits start to pay off and you're
Yeah.
like, I can't believe how much more time I have.
Right. Right.
Even when you were thinking about your trips and stuff like that, did you find
Yeah.
yourself in something similar to that? You realize, you look back, I'm like, I can't even, why didn't we do this sooner?
Right,
Right?
right. No, that is very true. But, you know, a lot of times I look back and I talk to others in a very similar circumstance. They look back and they couldn't imagine going back in time and do that whole thing all over again.
Isn't that the
You
truth,
know?
right?
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like right now, if you were to ask me to go back to like 8 years ago, the beginning of my financial journey, I don't know if I could do like long hours, 70, 80 hours even on a weekly basis to be able to achieve what I achieved, you know. And
Where did you, when you said you were coming back from Vietnam, now let's just talk about what you had to experience. I want you to share one of your, there was many in the book on your journey of getting out of Vietnam, but could you share with me, the public, on when you were you escaped out of, it's not like you got out of the Dodge.
Yeah.
And could you share a little bit, first of all, share about when you finally got out, but what was you experienced to get out?
yeah, it does. One of the events that I talk about in the book, the first one, you know, the description that I wrote about the event was quite innocent, but now that I look back, it was quite dangerous. You know, we were sitting there in the middle of nowhere. We had no idea where we were at. We were waiting for this big tube to get us out to the ship so that we could escape.
Right.
It was my brother and I and my mom, and then just another person, the paddler. We were like out there paddling for like half an hour or so, and we were not going nowhere. And you know, the tide was high, and you know, it was dark out. Obviously, we were trying to escape, so we were in total darkness. And then all of a sudden, you know, we turned around half an hour later, and then they told us to go home, right? But had something happened that night, if that tube were to flip,
Right.
how would we could have survived? There is no way. I was about 8 or 9 years old. My brother was about 9 or 10. And then my mother, we didn't know how to swim. And it was probably just that guy, and he probably was trying to save himself. So if something were to happen to us, I don't think I could be sitting here talking to you about this. But the second part of your question is, it has a lot to do with perspective, you know, because I've already experienced some of those, my life in poverty, all the struggles that I had. I am able to embrace the opportunities that America has given me, you know. At times when I struggle to take care of my debt journey,
Right.
I thought about my impoverished condition back in Vietnam, or the many lives that are still struggling to get by, you know. Then I finally realized that, you know, what I have right now is a lot more than a lot of people around the globe.
What's your thoughts on when you see people that, you know, are on TV, we see today, so saying that there's no opportunity, that there's too many struggles in America, you know, we have too many issues going on, I can never make, you know, what's your thoughts on that?
I think people that say that is because they haven't traveled very much.
Yeah.
And I don't.
I get that.
Yeah, and I don't mean that as making fun of people not being out there very much.
Right.
But if they actually go to the other side of the globe and Middle Eastern countries, Asian countries, and they see that the opportunities over here are endless. There are so many ways to embrace the opportunity to be successful here in the U.S.
Right.
There's really, if you go over there, you come back here and you don't see, or at least for me anyways, I don't see an excuse for not
It's
embracing.
transforming. Most
Yeah.
people that have worked in other countries or done missionary work and or just traveled, they're just like, they can't. They're mind boggled by some of the people that say those
Yeah.
things. They're like, you haven't left
Yeah.
this continent,
Right.
You haven't, and that you
Right.
haven't left this, and I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Many people say that I have in my circle, and sometimes they say, many people have lived a sheltered life.
Yeah.
They think everyone has running water and
Yeah.
and all the
Oh.
all the things, and we've kind of got comfortable,
Yeah.
complacent.
Yeah.
You probably see that. So let's go on with some of these questions so I can get some of them done. So I didn't write them down. I just have them in my book here. All right. So let me see. So how did writing become part of your life? Yeah, let's talk about that. How did writing become part of your life? Because it's not something that I know why you wrote the book, right? But actually, you've written 2 books. I mean, as many of your other family members that came here, are they authors? Or are you it?
I have a cousin who's also an author.
Okay.
Actually, I have two cousins that I know of who are authors. One is a professor at the University of Chicago.
Okay.
And then another one is a full-time author living in Los Angeles. But for me, I've never saw myself as a writer. Mainly because I struggle with the English language for so long. In college, I had to retake a couple of English classes in order to graduate and receive my diploma. And throughout the past first couple decades being here, my Vietnamese was also diminishing. So writing was really never a thing for me, although I've always had a love for writing, just writing my thoughts and writing this and that, nothing big. But I think in the recent years, when I had the opportunity to improve my English, hone in on my English, I took communication skills very seriously. So like I said, I read a lot of books. I read a lot of personal finance and investment books. And I tried to write a lot just to improve my English. And then once I was able to achieve some of my financial goals, I thought that I had a good story to write. Hence, The Ordinary Millionaire was born.
It's a very good book.
When I first started writing that one, all of a sudden everything flowed so nicely. It took me only about five months and a half to complete the first draft, because everything was in my head that I wanted to just have it on paper.
Well, what you say, practicing,
Yeah.
and then writing, and that's kind of what it is when you are getting out of debt. You're like
Yeah.
you shared with us.
Yeah.
You're trying different things.
Yeah.
Maybe one method is not 100%
Right.
perfect for your family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but maybe some parts of it
Right.
is good, and you start implementing it. I think delayed gratification is something that we really struggle with even in our own lives.
Right.
And that's
Right.
hard to give up because we
Right.
always want what we want.
Right. Right.
Yay!
Right.
And that's really, and I find it, I can even struggle with that. Okay, so what do you hope for those who read this book? What would they find? What would you like them to find in it?
The key takeaway for those who read my book that I want is with all the obstacles and challenges that I have faced in my life, if I could do it, others could. For me and my wife, if we could do it, others could do it as well. Just work hard, have a system to get out of debt, and learn how to invest and invest diligently. You know, do not get discouraged. Do not give up, and that's what I want people to take.
So
from
take
this.
investment aside, that it gets to be a really big mountain to start climbing.
Yeah.
What would be one to two things you could give them that are sitting there with a mountain of debt and maybe just needs to throw it all on the table? This is what they say, if you look at it, you can start facing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's when we hide things that gets us into trouble.
Yeah.
So we want to throw it on the table and do what with it? Go through and just, it's so eye-opening when they say when they do that, not everybody wants to do that. What is your thoughts on what are the couple things they could do to just get it started?
Well, getting started is the most difficult part, right? So obviously you have to be financially rock bottom, or you have to be so down in order to turn your life around, you know. So I would say seek help. Listen to there is so much information available on YouTube and podcasts everywhere, right? So whatever it is that you're struggling with, whether it's money, whether it's a job that you want to improve upon, the topic that you want to pursue, do research. YouTube, internet, radio, everything is available.
Get your book.
Or read.
Get this book.
Read a lot of books, and not just my book, but there's a lot of books out there.
There is a lot of books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you read books, usually you meet authors that not only talk about their own experiences, but they generally team up with research firm to come up with data, and they're able to share with you many perspectives. And that's how you learn, You read one book, but you can learn from like many different perspectives. And imagine if you read 10 books, 20 books, you get to learn so much, and then you're able to gather everything and come up with something on your own.
Right.
Because when you read 10 things, chances are one or two of those things are gonna fit your life.
It's probably as I read as many books and the things I've read in your book, I was going to say, you don't know what's going to stick with you.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
a lot of information that we
Right.
all do.
Right.
We're bombarded
Yeah.
with information.
Yeah.
And that's why people are like, what can I do to trust?
Yeah.
Well, they can trust
Yeah.
your book, but it's a process, right?
Yeah, there's a how-to in the last couple of chapters.
Okay.
To me, the important thing is not the how-to, but it's the why, the purpose of
The meaning to what you're doing.
to what you
need
want
to have
do.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's our whys. It's our major purpose, and so that is basically the motivation for you to wanting to pursue something. And then along the way, the how is very easy. Once you already have the mindset, obviously you can obtain that information. That's
Right.
the how anywhere.
That we want to thank MQ Hana for being here. The book is called The Ordinary Millionaire. And if you would like to change your life or learn more about how he became a millionaire, please get his book on Amazon. But we want to thank MQ for being here.
Thank you,
know what?
Pamela, for having me.
All right, so we want to thank everyone. We'll see you next time on Grand Tap Media Business TV. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Smile. Okay, good. All right, and did you get our pictures taken from in there? Okay, good. I want to make sure. All right, anything else you can? So what you are working on is your business. Is it now they can go there and start selling, or what?
So you're talking about my new one?
Yeah.
The one that
Yeah, the MQ. Is it MQ
Translations. Translations. If you go there, you see mqtranslations.com.
Okay. But is it? I mean, is now as official, or is it still just in the? It's out.
It is official, but I haven't done anything to promote it yet. So,
okay.
So people probably don't know about it.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.